everyone on the virtual side?
We can hear you.
So welcome to the panel on cyber workforce development, skilling, upskilling, reskilling. So we're joined today with a great group of professionals that has been deep in the trenches of trying to empower and mentor and help people access the cybersecurity career field. So I won't introduce Naomi Buckwalter, Chris Foulon, and Paul Cummings formally. I think we're all cyber adept enough that we can spend the precious few minutes that we have here today focused on dialogue and exchanging information rather than the mandatory introductions. I've already coordinated with the panelists, so everyone's fine with that. By way of my own introduction, I'm Pano Yannick-Georgios, currently at the New York University School of Professional Studies Center for Global Affairs, where I'm leading or directing the Masters of Science in Global Security, Conflict, and Cyber. In a previous career, I was with the US Air Force as a civilian for 8 years. My last job there was standing up the Air Force Cyber College. Moved to New York in 2019 and very quickly found myself trapped in a box that Naomi, Chris, and Paul all find themselves in today. As pandemic descended, we all kind of zoomed in, and this is actually my own first time being out of a Zoom box in a real life conference, and it really felt a lot like The Matrix. So the movie The Matrix, for those of you who aren't really familiar, kind of wake up and all of a sudden this gentleman named Neo discovers that he's no longer in a pod where he really was, but is in a box. So getting here kind of felt like being pulled out of the robotic pod, being put on an airplane, shipped down, and now all of a sudden I'm here with people in a room who have also found themselves here. But I bring up The Matrix for a reason, and that's because some of you may be familiar with the National Initiative of Cybersecurity Education, NICE framework. For those of you who aren't, it's been a decades-long process led by the Department of Homeland Security, supported by the Department of Education, Department of Commerce, and a lot of private sector actors, as well as the Department of Defense. And the task that they had many years ago was to kind of define what a cyber workforce looks like for the nation. Everyone knows that it's not just IT. Cyber is a very complex being. And the end result is now what is a national standard for what an ideal type of or a framework for what a cybersecurity workforce looks like. And it's a lot like a matrix. So in the movie The Matrix, you have Neo, the main character, looking at all this code. Only he can really understand what it is. And if this is presented to someone in HR or a foreign government who's trying to develop cyber capacity, and you present this framework to them, it's going to look a lot like those random strings of characters and numbers to those individuals. So one of the issues with the framework is that it is very much an IT-based focus framework, but those individuals that need to be kind of brought up to speed and have the lead in developing cyber workforces are the human capital managers, human resource managers, strategic leaders, and other individuals like that. And I feel like that is one of the key challenges that people like Paul, Chris, Naomi, and myself all face when we're trying to empower people to enter a cybersecurity space, which is very complex, not clearly identified or understood by human managers, human capital managers, and also really difficult to unravel if you're someone who is just recently aware that there's a lot of opportunity here and not really sure how to navigate themselves in. So wanted to open up the discussion with a broad question to our panelists. So as you've been mentoring, advising, and trying to inspire people to enter the cybersecurity workspace, what are some obstacles and also success stories that you've encountered? Naomi, we'll start with you.
I've been volunteered. Hey, everyone, I'm Naomi. Repeat that question because I was just looking at the chat there. Sorry, Pano. I'm starting off great.
So as you're engaging, talking with people, empowering, mentoring, advising them, what are some challenges that you faced in trying to help people overcome the complexity of entering cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think the part of the problem is twofold. On the entry level side, people don't really know what it takes to be a solid contributor on a security team. And then on the hiring side, we're just not seeing a lot of managers giving people chances that have a lot of potential. So I think the problem is twofold. But when I do mentor, and I've had several mentees, they're all very eager and passionate and willing to learn, willing to take direction, willing to just try something new and challenge themselves. And these are the people who would make excellent contributors to the cybersecurity profession. Now, are they given chances? That's a different question. That's a lot harder to answer. But for the people who are just, without the mentor and they don't really have direction, I think part of the problem is with the entry level folks is they just don't know what they don't know. And therefore, they don't know what they're supposed to study. They don't know what certifications they're trying to get to. They don't build the home labs. So they purely don't have direction and they don't have the guidance that is necessary to build a great foundation in cybersecurity. So if there's anything you could take away from this little tidbit here, if you are in a position to mentor somebody, for sure, just take someone with great potential, give them the knowledge that you wish you had when you first started. And again, there's so much out there. There's white papers, protocols, control frameworks. There's so many things out there for free that you just point them in the direction of that, like the NICE framework you just mentioned, Pano. That is one of many, many resources that are available today that anyone can consume. They just have to know where to go. And then kind of one last thing that I do look when I do mentor, I do notice that a lot of people trying to break into cybersecurity really don't know what they want to be when they grow up. They don't know what their skills are, their strengths, their weaknesses. They don't really know themselves as people. And I think that's another thing that's holding them back from really understanding where they might excel in cybersecurity.
And to continue on that point of that self-discovery, that's usually the first thing that I work with individuals to do, is to focus on that self-discovery and using tools like the NICE framework that you mentioned earlier, using tools like YouTube's videos that kind of go through a day in the life of a certain role, allows individuals to see the very different roles that are available within cybersecurity. But then from there, it's honing in on what are the potential transferable skills that they have, what are their areas of passion, what are their areas of interest. They might think a SOC analyst role is superbly interesting until they see someone sit down and shift logs all day. It may or may not be what they wanted to do as when they grow up or when they got into the field. So it's really about having those informational interviews with peers, with individuals in the industry, to allow them to see what a day in the life of, so that they can really figure out, is this role right for me? Is this something that I'm really interested for? And then the other thing is, we have this amazing pipeline of individuals that comes through the armed forces, and they come with a wealth of experience on the other side of their service. And oftentimes you're not given credit for their experience within the armed forces, and you're looked as individuals with no experience. So for them, it's about highlighting the transferable skills that they've done within their tour duties to the private sector hiring managers. Paul?
I can't agree more with what everybody said, from Pano all the way down to Chris. The transition process, a lot of the mentees that I gain, my little Padawan, I like to call them, I focus more on the career pivoters, this transitioning service members, those that have an industry standard hard and soft skills already embedded in them, and help them, really navigate the NICE framework, assign them the homework of that soul searching and self-discovery of, looking at these roles, and, you're looking at 52 possible roles, 33 subspecialties, and breaking it down to 3 to 5 of them that they really like, that really stand out, and get them to understand the personality traits, doing something like 16 personalities or a Myers-Briggs test, because personalities and behavior absolutely matter within cyber. An introvert that joins a SOC might not be a valuable asset if they're on site in a SOC. because they're more lone wolf. They want to answer questions on their own. They don't want to ask questions, where they might strive virtually. And Chris nailed it with the veteran, the veteran community. When you look at the 1.8 million to 2.8 million unfilled cybersecurity roles globally, 28 to 30% of that is mid to senior level roles. And these types of roles, you're not destined to be super technical. You have to grasp the foundational and the fundamental knowledge of the positions. And then how we do it with Whole Cyber is we train holistically. We mentor folks holistically to where they understand not just one domain, but all domains. So at the end of the day, they become a highly valuable asset when you have companies that can't retain talent. They can move people with, up within a company based on, them having an understanding of X, Y, and Z position. The Skill Bridge, great program. We're starting to see more companies participate in the DoD Skill Bridge programs. It's amazing. The ICS Joint Working Group is working on apprenticeship programs for critical infrastructure for veterans. I'm hoping that they will add career pivoters as well. But yeah, it's holistically, I think all of us are seeing across the board that your recruiters and your hiring managers are claiming that they can't find talent, where we consistently mentor talent on a daily basis, and they just can't get that fair shake. And a lot of it deals with the job descriptions.
Paul, that's very insightful. And I wanted to kind of pick on one point you just brought up that I think was really kind of eye-opening. So, we've heard about the huge talent gap in cybersecurity, the 1.2 to 3 million, depending on which survey you're reading, of jobs that are open but unfilled. But the one thing that really I liked about what you just said is that most of those are mid-level, or a significant portion of them are mid-level to senior roles. And we're right now not really in a point in time where we can just rely on developing that undergraduate pipeline, getting those students into jobs at the entry level, developing them within an organization and getting them to that mid-level role. That could take a decade. So what can be done? What can organizations do to maybe take the existing talent pool they have at kind of that mid-level, maybe within the military construct, that 03 major lieutenant colonel level that has no cyber experience, and get them cyber aware enough so they can lead teams and empower the individuals that are entering the workforce? Open question to the panel.
That's a good grenade to jump on. When you look at, we don't even have to look at officers in general when we talk about folks in the military. You have senior enlisted, whether or not they're an E5 all the way to E9, or an 01 to 04, which is still a junior officer level. When you give them the ability, and you can highlight free and very inexpensive training that's available to them to learn how to become a functional member within cyber, that's where you start. There's so many pop-up academies, there's so many boot camps. This is targeted specifically for the veteran community, where you got boot camps that are charging veterans and service members 9 months of their post 9/11 GI Bill that they could have used for college for 2 to 3 certifications. Where you have companies like CyberBytes Foundation that offers free instructor-led courses in CompTIA A+ through Sec+ for free, and then the member only has to pay for the certification voucher. Or using the community editions of Immersive Labs, community edition of range force, really picking the flavor based on, the soul search and discovery that you've done for the roles that you want to get into. If you're trying to be a SOC manager, understanding what each individual role, each individual contributor does for that SOC, you're no longer a manager, you're a servant leader, because now you know how to feed them, where to find knowledge, where to get their upskilling, and what really matters to the overall mission. And with veterans, service members, military spouses, we're all looking for a place where we can make a difference. A mission that hits home for us is anything that follows the same morals and values that we've encompassed over, a 4 to 20-year career. So, whether that's taking an electronic technician from the Navy who's used ICS, OT, SCADA systems their entire career as a user, and relating to them that they have that knowledge as a user. Now let's focus on how we secure that ITOT. And that's just one of the ways that we can branch and help secure our nation's critical infrastructure.
And to pop onto that, as you're talking about that mid to senior role position, companies should look internally to other organizations within the business that have a solid understanding of the business. They just need to learn the cyber aspect of it. Because if you take a senior director or a director or even a manager from another department that understands the business mission and what the organization needs to do to generate their profits, to generate their operations, and then puts them into cyber with strong technical individuals underneath them, they will be solid enough to be able to lead that team and allow the mission to be completed while providing the leadership aspect of that role and being able to then communicate back to the business where the concerns are, where the risks are, as well as back to their team where they see that the business needs additional risk mitigations to help them. Naomi?
Hi, Chris. Yes. This is what I do. I take a mid-senior person in a related field like application development or engineering, and I say, hey, you want to join my team? I got a spot open. I take them, I train them, I send them to the best training, SANS training. Yes, I do send them to SANS training, even though it's $10,000. That's a whole different topic. But I send them SANS training. I give them an 8-week training plan. I say, I don't expect you to do anything except learn for the next 8 weeks everything you can about application security. Right. And so at the end of it, then we say, now what do we do with this knowledge? We build a whole roadmap. We base it off of a standardized control framework, right? We have a plan for this person because I've taken their knowledge in a related field, application development, and I said, let's add on security. And you can do the same thing for a lot of different types of roles. And think about how we all started in security back in the day. We were developers, we were engineers, we were network people. We went from that and we added security on top. Right. However, and this is where I want to stress, we no longer have to do that. Our industry has evolved. We don't need somebody with 10 years of experience doing one other thing and then bringing them into security. Yes, we can still do that. However, we don't need to. And I think the point is we can't afford to have that anymore because the veterans that we need in the future are the entry-level folks that we have today. And we need to train them how they are, high potential, really great at learning, good critical thinking skills, good people skills, take them as they are and grow them up. We just don't have the time to wait for them to grow up and wait for them to be 10 years in a different profession before they add on the security. We really can't afford that.
I love that, Naomi. And the fact that you mentioned, you're pulling people in and giving them that extra power to become that manager leader. It gives the ability when you look at some companies that have a forecasted model like a SOC where they have a plateau of workforce growth. You get these technicians that get in as analyst 1, and then by their 18-month mark, they're already an analyst 3 or a lead analyst. And now they're to the point where a company might entice them as if you're talking about a MISP, MSSP, It might be enticing them with, a regional operations management role or a SOC manager role. And that kind of scares them and they want to jump ship because how everybody sees managers is just that. They're managing them. We have to empower leaders. We have to get diversity inside the workforce. Why can't we get women into the cybersecurity, right? That's one giant topic that I think all three of us could probably spend 8 hours a piece on, based on the requirements that a woman feels that they need to fill in order to even apply for a job. But think of the serious hard and soft skills that a single mother has. Crisis management, conflict resolution. These are the type of leaders that can absolutely help develop a team, and not necessarily be 100% technical.
That's a really good point, Paul, sorry. Especially on the issue of women in the cybersecurity workforce, as well as other underrepresented communities, people of color, minorities, ethnicities that don't really feel comfortable to enter for a lot of the reasons that we've been hearing out throughout the morning of, fear of the unknown, not identifying with a career field and that kind of stuff. But I think that, and I'll throw this out there as an idea for discussion. So training, certifications all cost a lot of money. Underrepresented communities may not have the financial means to pursue those certifications that would enable them to get their resumes past the HR screening within a cybersecurity firm. Is the ecosystem as it exists today flawed? And what can we do to kind of move past expensive certs and try to empower, get people to enter cybersecurity without having them to pay a lot of money to gain entry?
That's a great question. And I think some of the things that we can do today is that we have a glutton of technical education that's already out there from free providers that provide access to this, whether it's YouTube or another platform, that you can have the fundamental knowledge that those certs provide without having the piece of paper. And I think one of the things that we promote, the three of us, a lot is networking with people in the community versus just submitting applications via the applicant tracking system. That way you can get to know the hiring manager, you can get to know your peers ahead of time before you even apply for the role. And then that way they can see your value and not just the pieces of paper that you have from a certification.
And I would just challenge Hannah about what you mentioned earlier about underrepresented groups not having money to take the courses and stuff. Like that's a hard stretch because I'm underrepresented, and I'm certainly not hurting for money and opportunities, but that's simply because I was stressed education when I was younger. I grew up in a family that had that as an important thing, right? So what you're looking for, I think it's a false narrative to say that just because I look a certain way or I have a certain skin color, like I didn't have the same opportunities in America. I think that is super false and dangerous to say, but that's just my personal opinion. Don't take that as fact. We do have certain, definitely a lot of organizations out there that provide free training, low cost training for anyone who might not have the resources, the time, the money, right? Like those certainly exist. And I think they're available to anybody. I don't think there's an ethnicity requirement in order to get those, right? So let's just think critically about why we think certain things and if they're true or not. I think the more important thing to ask ourselves is when people do get in and they might be a different color, gender, race, whatever, are they feeling included? I think inclusion is the bigger question here. I don't think entering in requires a certain look, but the people who are in the industry, are we treating them well with respect, with equality? Are we doing that to each other? I think that's the bigger question.
Yeah, Naomi, that's a really good point. And So it's not about underrepresented communities not having money, but it's more about the socioeconomic gap that exists. So there are definitely pockets of the country that are in underrepresented communities that have no financial means, are trapped in a poverty cycle, commit crimes to survive basically, and get criminal records and other things that automatically inhibit them from entering a position in cybersecurity. So combining two thoughts that I had is the first one we've kind of talked about already, about how do we kind of level the playing field economically for all groups that are not of middle income, socioeconomic status. How do we level the playing field there? I think we talked about that a little bit. But also, how do we give second chances to those who might have dabbled in cybercrime, may have committed another crime because they needed to eat, and that kind of stuff. So how do we convey to hiring managers that you may have made mistakes in the past, you may not be a destructive individual, but you still should have an opportunity to enter the cybersecurity career fields that exist?
So I think with your first subject is the certifications and how costly they are. You know, there's like 650 some odd certifications now in the world. They're popping up daily. Everybody's becoming a certifying official. You know, back when I first got my Security Plus in 2003, it was Cert for Life. You know, and I think when we transitioned to 2007 with the DoD 8570, 8140, and the civilian populace followed suit, we started holding so much value in a piece of paper. You know, and between 2007 2009, certification boot camps were costing on the average of $2,500 to $3,000 for a 5-day class that all they do is they teach you how to take a test. Now tell me, those people that got that certification, what knowledge do they actually have? Our first step is we need to recalibrate certifications. They need to go back to where it's a bragging right and not a rite of passage. You know, when you look at some of these level of certifications, and you look at, if you follow Naomi's polls and her statistics that she does, and then when she finds these great unicorn job postings where, you know, it's calling for entry level, but they have to have a CISSP, right? We have to get the recruiters educated. We have to get the hiring managers educated, and, you know, whoever's writing the job descriptions really fluent in what talent truly is. I think cyberknights.us, granted it's only gated to U.S. citizens, is a great mechanism. You know, a lot of the things that we mentioned with doing a personality test is involved with it. You know, when you create a profile, you do a aptitude test where you do the arithmetic, the math, and all that jazz. And then the certifications that you already have, when you upload them into this, it'll tell you the KSAs that you already have. And when you're looking at a lot of the job postings that are riddled with certifications, it's because they don't know the KSAs that's required for that job. You know, and following OPM's footsteps with, you know, the cyber workforce, you know, cage codes for what roles do within the NICE framework is one of the first steps. You identify that role, you write that description, and now you can write the tasks that are actually involved with it. So if you have a vulnerability technician or a threat intelligence analyst, you know, service members alone are taught that Security Plus will get them any job in IT and cybersecurity, because all we do is talk to DoD contractors, NGS employees, where we all know that Security Plus is not a Band-Aid to fix, you know, a hiring gap. You know, I wouldn't expect a threat intelligence analyst to get Security Plus because it has no weight bearing or return on investment for them. They can get the training for free and then focus on that certification, like incident handler or network intrusion analyst type certifications that really matter. I mean, it's long-winded, but I really think we need to take a step back and re-gauge how we look at certifications.
Thanks, Paul. Agreed. Certifications give a false sense of security even to the company that's bringing people in as well. We have 3 minutes on the clock. I don't know if there's anyone here in the physical audience that might have a question, but happy to take any. If you raise your hand, press the mic.
Any call to action that you all can share with the audience in the room and online, Naomi, Chris, Paul, on how we can make this a better process with how hiring managers and organizations, HR, can make this a better process working with all of you in the community that are trying to help the cause?
Was that Leah? Yeah, this is what we need to do. We just have to start believing that we can fix this problem. No one's going to save us. No one, like, CIS is not going to come in magically, wave their wand and be like, you all have $1 million each. Go ahead and buy the things. Like, the people who are going to save us is ourselves. We're not going to wait for a savior to come in. No one's going to be riding in on a white horse. Like, we need to solve this problem. And what do we have to do? We have to start educating ourselves first and understand there is a problem. Perhaps the problem could be as simply as maybe we aren't as good as we think we are, right? Maybe the problem isn't in our entry-level positions. Maybe the problem is in our senior and mid-senior positions. There are a lot of charlatans in security, and we all know this. So why don't we point a mirror at ourselves and say, what don't we know and what's holding us back? I think we are holding ourselves back. We're putting up the gates, and we're the only ones who can break it down. So if we are trying to find a solution, look first within ourselves and think critically about the things we say and do and how we enable the business or don't enable a business, right? Ask ourselves these questions and just have conversations. Have conversations to win hearts and minds. That's what I do. I try to go around and say, here's what I'm thinking. What do you guys think, right? Have a conversation, collaborate with someone else, understand their point of view, empathize. And once you start realizing there's a bigger conversation here, it's not just, here's a solution, go ahead and enact it. We need to come up with the solution ourselves together. And we have to really believe that we can make this change.
And I think a good call to arms, I know Naomi didn't talk about it, but cybersecurity gatekeepers, always looking for mentors. There's nothing saying a hiring manager or a senior or even a junior technical recruiter can't be a mentor. Whole Cyber Human Initiative. I'm in the process of filing my 501 officially, and that's our call to arms is helping reshape talent, how talent is seen, and helping create workforce development programs for organizations to actually retain, talent. So, just finding those organizations that match what you think can help solve, the next 20-year security gap. That's the call to arms. Take a stand, join a group, become a board of advisor of a foundation that embodies what your moral compass says, and make a change. Create apprenticeship programs. If you look at DOL, the apprenticeship program is not gated towards entry-level candidates. Your mid to senior level folks can still enroll as an apprenticeship. Department of Labor, you're talking about, roughly $500 per person enrolled into an apprenticeship program. If you got 20 people, that's $20,000 Department of Labor can help you build an education platform to continue growth.
All great points for call to arms, and I'll add one as well as we wrap up the session. So what I found to be very effective in getting women and underrepresented communities and feeling empowered is to use competitions that exist out and coach a team. So there's a competition called the Cyber 912 Strategy Challenge that the Atlanta Council, which is a think tank in DC, puts on every year. And what I do is I get a group of students, focus on diversity, on who gets picked for these teams. And usually the students are kind of like, well, why do you want me to be on this team? So one year I had an all-female group of students. None of them had any cyber background. They were all in my cybersecurity course. They were selected and were told you're going national. And they made the semifinals, but the key point of the story isn't the sweat, blood, and tears that they put into getting to the semifinals, but afterwards, they intentionally started taking steps to look for careers in cybersecurity when they did not have any interest in entering the cybersecurity workforce before. And the student got a job, one of the students got a job and emailed me and said, if it wasn't for that opportunity, for you to display that confidence in me that I could actually compete successfully and seeing myself get into the semifinals, I would have never thought that cybersecurity was a job that a career that I could enter. So competitions, team building, in addition to formal education, are all additional ways that I would encourage everyone to, if you have the time and energy, to use to offer students opportunities, or people in your communities opportunities to engage with cyber and learn on their own as well what they're capable of. Thank you for your time, and looking forward to the rest of the conversation. And Naomi, Paul, it was great to have a chance to work with you on this panel, and good luck with everything we're doing.